Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green, and Noel John is MIA, unfortunately. We still got Carmack in the back, and this is MDK Presents the Waterford Film Festival. And Stephen, you're here on behalf of the Waterford Film Festival. Can you tell the folks who you are, what you do, and why you've come here?
Sure, yeah, and thanks for having me. And my name is Stephen Byrne. I'm the festival director and founder of the Waterford Film Festival. The festival was established in 2007, and we basically run several competitions for national and international filmmakers, writers, and photographers. And we just recently finished our 15th annual event last weekend.
And how long have you been with the festival, Stephen?
I'm the founder of it, so since 2007, I established it then.
Oh, really? Yeah. So,
yeah.
What made you decide that you wanted to establish a film festival down in Waterford?
Well, I have a background in film production as a producer. I started out basically making short drama films primarily, and I was working on several projects at around 2005 and 2006. And I just basically noticed that my home city didn't have an international film festival. And I just started researching into it and researching how to establish one, putting a business plan together, and I started approaching the likes of the Waterford Chamber of Commerce, and then they gave me a few leads, and meetings were set up in Culture Ireland, in the arts office, the local arts office in Waterford City and County Council, and kind of got the ball rolling there.
You're like I pushed a gigantic boulder up a hill.
yeah,
so many steps to it, isn't there?
Yeah, I started looking into it in September 2006, or around there, or roundabouts. And I had my first meeting about the whole thing in January 2007, and then I officially launched to open for submissions in April 2007. Yeah.
And when you have you changed your process much since you began to now? Like, you're 15 years on, you're obviously like a seasoned vet in the festival world now, you know what I mean? The Waterford Film Festival is known nationally and internationally. It's known all around the world. So, like, what have you changed in your process from, like, when it came to the very first festival, when it came to submissions, the amount of people that came in and stuff, and the categories, and what have you changed? And have you brought extra people on to review different things and stuff? And how has the process evolved over time?
Yeah, it has changed a lot over time, to be honest with you. We started out as being a bit of everything. Like, we did feature documentaries for the first 4 years. We did feature films for the first 4 years. We had different categories and in a lot of different areas of film in general. But basically, we started just 1 year before the crash, the economic crash. So we had a really good start, and then boom, and then over time, within 2 or 3 year period, finance was dropping. As you know, the arts always gets cut. That's one of the first things that cut it in pretty much everywhere. So we had a choice to make, and one of the choices was to scale back for a bit. So we dropped several of the categories and focused more on the shorts, because they were always more popular amongst the general supporters of the festival, but also the filmmakers out there are always making short films. So we focused on that element, and we kind of restructured and rebuilt. Our team has changed over the years, but there's been a solid several members for a good 6 or 7 years now. The same several people that helped out on a fairly voluntary basis, and we have guest judges that come on board for helping pick our winners over the years. But we do a lot in our spare times, and we just keep ticking away. I'm the main focus of the bill, so this is kind of like a part-time job for me, and I'm a freelancer as well in film production, so it's kind of like half and half of my time divided up. And it's just been a passion of mine to keep going, and I'm determined to keep it going in some shape or form.
Do you think with the kind of like the advent of the YouTube kind of generation, and a lot of people digest their content in short snippets, 2, 3, maybe 14, 15-minute videos, do you think now the fact that you've evolved away from maybe feature-length documentaries and feature-length independent movies towards a more of a stint towards short movies, that will actually suit you going forward, because people now are more used to like consuming content in like 12-minute bursts or a 5-minute burst or a 2-minute burst because of YouTube and the like?
Yeah, definitely. Overall, like with the advancement of, as you said, with YouTube's and technology and people shooting things on their phone and all the rest of it, there is that element where the shorts are actually getting just more and more popular with people in general. Yeah. And it's kind of funny to how times have changed. Like when I first started out back in the early noughties, there was always a lot of short films out there, but there's just way more now. There's just like, there's a lot more opportunity for young people to get out there. Because when I started out, you either had mainly two choices, and you might have, if you were really lucky, you would raise enough money for Super 16 film. If you were really, really lucky, you had money for 35mm film, or your alternative was digital beta. They were kind of like the main platforms that you bounced around with,
Yeah.
Now there's everything. There's high def cameras. There's cameras on your phone that are have really good high resolution that give people those opportunities to make their those stories.
Didn't Steve Soderbergh film an entire movie Unsane on his iPhone or something?
Yeah.
So it shows you like that, like the technology is so advanced that like even someone like a feature-length film director like Steve Soderbergh can lean on his phone and make a feature-length movie. Like, so it's really out there, and it kind of opens up the whole world to small filmmakers, as well.
It does, and that's, it gives those people a chance to even get their stories, made, and they don't have to wait around for a load of finance all the time, So there's pros and cons to all elements of it, but that's definitely pro.
So like the con is like a lot of bad films.
No, not necessarily. No, I wouldn't go that far now. But we got a couple of films that we screened this year that were shot entirely on iPhones, and were very, very impressive.
Especially the higher end iPhones are like ridiculous quality, aren't they? Like some of them are like £1,000 or something. Like it's every bit as good as a digital camera.
That's what I've seen in several examples in recent years, that the quality has been excellent. So it's good to see.
Yeah, one thing I like as well is like when you have it like a format like a short, and the budget's often quite low, that the directors use a lot of they're kind of become very innovative, like the movie Mero about the mermaid and the girl sitting on the shore.
Yes, it was lovely shot.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like, and I just thought like, because it's so low budget, but it looks so good, and that like if you were to shoot that maybe 10-20 years ago, if you don't have that kind of camera quality, like, you know what I mean, at that budget, you're not like, because now, as you said, you can have a phone that you already use, that you already own. It's not like you have to factor that into the film budget. Like, you're like, okay, if my phone's good enough, you know what I mean, like you can just like put everything into the story,
That's true, and there's new ways to make your productions give them a bit more production value. Like when I was starting out, if you wanted aerial and high aerial shots, you would have to get like a Jimmy the Jib huge crane thing, and hook your camera to it, or get a helicopter. And back in the early noughties, half an hour of a helicopter was like $3,000 alone. Now you could probably hire somebody with a drone, something like that, for way less, and you get those beautiful aerial spectacular shots to give your film that extra bit of production value for a lot less, So that's another example of how technology has helped filmmakers just increase their overall production values of their films.
And something we talked a little bit about before we started recording was this year you said you had a big year for animation. And I'm a big animated nut. Like I grew up with Disney and Pixar, you know, and like literally the kind of creme de la creme of animation. You can kind of see that Pixar vibe in a few things, like Final Destination. We spoke a little bit
That's
about
what we
earlier.
thought, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I had that, and my favorite, one of my favorites was Memento Mori, and I thought like had a real Edgar Allan Poe kind of feel to it. It kind of
Excellent. It was actually our runner-up for best short
yeah,
film this year, so it was very well done. We were delighted to have it and to be able to give it our second prize.
And what other kind of like when you know when you're looking at shorts and when you're looking at like live action, do you like when you're doing awards, do you like literally put them side by side on like where the Oscars would be like, you know, they'd have separate categories for best short animated, best short live action, or do you kind of just look at the merits and less of the instead of the format itself?
It's kind of a little bit of both, to be honest with you. You know, we would have a system where we would try and narrow it down and would have these films side by side. Before we make these final decisions, we watch these films side by side again, you know, so we'll go, given film A, say 9 out of 10, and film B 9 out of 10, and they're very close together, we rewatch them and try and narrow it down that way as well.
Well, and you would look at like if they're completely divergent thematically, would you look at like how they hit their beats in each story?
Yeah,
like,
to a certain degree, and we've taken a variety of different accounts. You know, like we understand that some are fully professional and have bigger budgets. Others have less budget and are debuts or students. So we would take into account of that and those elements, and then focus on the lower budget ones. We might focus more on the writing and the acting and the overall direction, and not so much the production values. And then professional ones, we would kind of take all elements a bit more in because they're the ones that have that extra money and more experience. So it's a tough process, but we do our best anyway.
That's the thing. Like, it's like sometimes production value, you kind of have to leave that aside and just kind of focus just on the story itself, because
the story and the writing, the quality of the writing, and the quality of the direction and acting as well. And you kind of do your best to break it down and just.
You can only bake a cake with the ingredients you have, kind of thing, isn't it? Like
exactly. Yeah. And story would be a big factor in that particular example.
And when you like look over the slate of movies, like did any of them in particular kind of jump out to you, aside from like there might be like the big award winners, but aside from the award winners, was there any kind of like honorable mentions that kind of jumped out to you?
Well, the honorable mentions was a Greek film. One of them was a Greek film. And it was basically narrated. That's the one. And it was basically about the director was narrating a story of his father's life and how he met his mother, how his family came to place, and the father's early years struggling through poverty and during Nazi occupation. And it was a beautiful film. It was stunningly shot, and it was a lovely story and fantastic original soundtrack. So there was a lot of things that ticked the boxes for us here anyway on that one. And Tommy Devore's Home was our honorable mention, and that was a great story about an Irish actor who lives in New York, and it's primarily his relationship about his mother and his family, but also his relationship with Philip Seymour Hoffman. They hung out together in the early 90s. They lived together in an apartment. And kind of tells an insight. Yeah, but it was very well done. They mixed it with live action as well as animation to try and tell the story and his early years as an actor. So it was very creative.
I love that about it, where a few movies you're kind of like, oh, what's this? And it's like, and it just sneaks up on you, kind of like when I was watching the one about the post office robbery.
Post Love. That was very Irish comedy. Very enjoyable. We got a few laughs, a few chuckles around that one, all right.
Yeah, I was like, why is she wearing a plastic bag on her face?
Going to rob the post office. Granny's robbing the post office. Like, where, some
Yeah,
idea.
that's what. Yeah, I love that. Because you're like, you could be 8 or 9 movies into the slate, and you're kind of getting a little tired, and you're like, what? And you see a couple of things, and you're just like, what is this? Like, it'll be just a guy talking, and then all of a sudden, the guy's like, oh, I had a gambling addiction, and then he was like, oh, I robbed on Post for 1.7 million, and you're like, now do you have me? And you just sit forward, and it's just kind of the thing. Like, one thing I loved about the shorts where you constantly have movies that just sneak up on you.
Yeah.
And I think I was like on the second or third day I got up and I was pretty tired, and I was like I threw on, I think it was program 7 or 8, and On the Iron Shelf came on, and
the sci-fi, yeah. Actually, sci-fi,
yeah. And I was like, it's such a clever way if you've got 20 minutes and you want to tell this kind of little story, but like you have so many little moving parts going on in it, where it's like you tell your mythos in a little quick screen scroll at the start. And like they've been doing it for ages, back in the 60s and 70s. Sci-fi movies are like, okay, if we've got a lot of lore to tell, we're going to do a quick screen scroll at the start. That's going to save us like a couple of million in the budget, and it's just like you kind of get stuck into the story. And I love that, where it was just a fight sequence for pretty much 20 minutes. And it was really, really cool. And it just
very impressive. I was quite taken back. I don't usually get that amount of fighting choreography going on in short films. Like we get other choreography, like kind of dance films and art house films and stuff like that. But the fighting, pretty cool action sequences, and it was impressive for a short film.
Yeah, and even the whole aesthetics of the movie, like everything was like kind of, it looked otherworldly. I know it was supposed to be set on like a moon off the just on the orbit of Jupiter or something, or Saturn or something, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah. It had all these red colors and hands colors, yeah.
It was very kind of Lovecraftian how it looked, like a lot of space or something, And just that early in the day, that the second or third day caught my attention. It kind of amped me up for the rest of the day. I just loved, that was one of my best or one of my favorite things about it, when you have such a variety. Every now and again, when you're getting just a little bit tired, and you get a movie that sneaks up on you, and it lifts you back up again for the rest of it. That kind of like.
True, yeah. But there was over, I think, 25 hours of short films in total. So that's a lot. 4 days.
I said challenge accepted, and I did not bow from that challenge. And so Stephen, when over the next couple of years, do you see the Waterford Film Festival staying online? Because I know you, I think it was one of your posts I read from your Facebook page that you said that the place where you used to host it is kind of that's closed down now. So do you see your future remaining online? You're going to go back into a physical space, or what way do you think?
The next year we're definitely going to be doing a bit of both. We're going to go back to physical, but it won't be as what we used to be, I don't think. But we will be doing some form of physical. We have some space booked with the Odeon Cinema in Waterford for next year. There's some confirmations to be done early next year on that, but we will hope to do something like that, and also have an awards presentation as well. We're aiming for the House of Waterford Crystal, the early days in that, but that's what we're looking for, and an online version. So kind of like a bit of a crossover, a bit of a mix, and I think it will be like that for us and maybe several others for in Ireland anyway, for several years to come, until things are a bit more calmer.
Do you think it's going to be a long time, like long term?
I think so. I think it will be at least a medium time. I think at least a 3-year period of readjustment, and we'll just have to see. Well, we're playing it by year at the moment, And it obviously depends on funding and financing, because doing both is a lot. It's a lot of resources, and there's various costs involved and so forth. But I think either way, it will be a bit of both. We'll probably have maybe a day or two of a physical festival sort of scenario, and maybe 3 days online or something like that. I can't give you exact days or anything like that. We just wrapped pretty much a week ago. But there would be a mix, but our objective would be to have some form of physical again. Definitely, we kind of miss our audience. We miss meeting the filmmakers and hanging out with them. That's part of what we've been about. Where we mingle with the filmmakers, we have coffee with them afterwards, or drinks, or and we do our best to network with them and introduce them to other filmmakers. That's kind of what it was. So if we can do that even one full day or 2 full days next year with an online thing, we would be very happy after.
Go half and half.
Half and half, basically, yeah. We'd be happy with that, and to ease back into it again, Times have changed with everything with COVID and all that, so we have to adjust and restructure.
Do you think that, like, due to lockdown and people kind of like being having to be more insular, that they might have actually had more filmmakers that might have had one eye on feature-length documentaries or feature-length movies decided that they're actually going to throw their hat in, like make it short, because you can do it as a much smaller crew and cast and stuff,
Definitely. The one thing we saw a big increase in was little documentaries. Documentaries that were stories of kind of like video diaries of what people, how they coped with COVID. And some of them were done kind of art housey. Some of them were very narrative in their voiceover and telling their story and that sort of thing.
Like imprints.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We had, there were several movies that were very monologue based as well. So you just need one actor or actress and maybe a small crew, very small types of crew. So things like that. Saw an increase in those sort of stories as well. And from my kind of review of everything and seeing what the filmmakers have been sending me and emails and discussions and whatnot, some filmmakers kind of took a break last year from live action and got into animation, for an example. So animation documentaries and one person, one camera sort of stuff was on the increase during our submission period for the past 2 seasons.
In the submission process, did you see more of an uptick in like found footage and stuff like this, or?
There was a bit of that as well, and experimental, and we saw documentaries where people were interviewing other individual artists or finding out what people might have, how they changed their lives, or they're, learning a new skill or a new delving into art or learning how to play guitar. Little pieces like that, or poetry pieces, dance pieces.
One movie that really jumped out to me was Holy Man.
Oh, yeah. The Fly on the Wall documentary of a male. Very amusing.
Brilliant. Yeah.
That was a student film as well, I believe, off the top of my head.
That was another one. Up in the Holy Lands or something, isn't it, in Belfast?
In Northern Ireland, yeah. That was it, yeah. There was, little things like that as well, small cast, but it was amusing. It was a nice bit of writing there.
Yeah, it was really, really funny, and that's another one that kind of snuck up on me as well. Like it's just like you're not expect like that is a really high level quality, like in terms of comedy. It hits its beats the whole way through. You're like at the start, you're like, what's this movie about? He's like, I can't make my rent, and he checks his balance, and he's like, -1,500 or something. He needs.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure at the very beginning myself. Yeah, it kicks off.
I was like, yeah, and it's just really, really well done. It's like, and I just love like when something we speak about a lot in the podcast is like waste of resources when we're talking about movies, and like when you have like a 15-minute or 20-minute runtime, you can't waste any of your resources if you really want to hit those beats. And like something like Holy Man really jumped out to me because straight away it's like it set the tone with the style of the fonts and stuff flashing across the screen. So it gives you kind of like a caperish type feel, like like a Snatch or something. So something's going to go on, and then it's like straight away you're like, okay, and it sets the beats, and then it's like it kind of just escalates immediately because you kind of have to take out the character development a little bit in the short. So you're just like, how are you going to escalate it? So you have to escalate it in the right way, because if you do a slow burn, sometimes you find yourself running out of time near the end, and the end can be a little bit anticlimactic. And I just thought with that, like, it's like, okay, we know where we gotta go, so just like set the problem, and then there's like set solution, where it's just like complete escalation of the situation. And it's just like, like, you know, when you have 20 minutes, I just thought it was absolutely hilarious that, like, straight away his first thing to do is like, I want to be an escort, or just driving for, you know what I mean? It's just like, how is that the first thing you think? You know what I mean? And because you have it short, it's brilliant, because they jump straight to the last thing you'd normally think about. You know what I mean? You just kind of just kind of jump straight into the action. You know.
Yeah, no, you get little nuggets like that once in a while, and it's great to see, like, you know, and you know, obviously they just stepping out of their comfort zone a bit, and they actually got together and got a film made, and that's what it's about. You have to get out there and experiment and try new and different things, and it's just a good thing to focus on.
And I like the way the market with the Banshee as well. We were big horror fans over here. We've got a horror show, and the market with Banshee, it showed a bit of ambition, because it kind of left it open for a sequel. You know,
yeah, it was actually, yeah. Like, it was fairly self-contained, but it just left that little nugget towards the end. She's kind of being dragged away there. And it was surprising me, because, like, you know, it wasn't an American production, but it's Irish folklore. It's kind of an interesting little crossover that they brought over to the States, and fair play to them. Yeah, it was. There were some definite solid creepy moments in that. All right.
And do you normally see a lot of horror submissions, because that's one genre that lends itself to a low budget, you know, better than most?
Yeah, we not tons and tons now, to be honest with you. But yeah, I suppose we would see maybe about 15% would be that genre, give or take. So
what would you see more than anything? Documentaries, would it be? Because of the
drama. Drama would be always up there, definitely. Serious drama and real life sort of situations, or things that we see things that have kind of affected people, you know, kind of real life situations, say, like, that might be in the news. Well, stuff like you know, we've seen films over the years of young people struggling in rural areas, not having much opportunity for the future. That would be one sort of theme that might pop up. Another theme would be about the housing crisis, you know, stories of homeless people, stories of domestic abuse, you know, sexual abuse, stories of poverty, you know. So there's kind of, drama will be kind of a major part of it, of our submission, but also like a lot of uplifting stuff as well. Like, we get a lot of stories of coming of age and childhood and things like of that nature. And then I suppose our second biggest one would be kind of thriller - comedy, and comedy would be a big one as well. And then documentaries, and that would be kind of.
The Wake was a good comedy.
What's that?
The Wake.
The Wake was brilliant, yeah. It was written by Jonathan Hughes, the first movie. And that screenplay was part of our screenplay competition for the 10th Waterford Film Festival, and actually won that year, the screenwriting competition. So it was great to see it kind of come full circle 5 years later. You know, it actually got made and produced. And
does that happen often?
It doesn't happen too often, but, you know, we started the screenwriting competition in year 2, so in 2008. And we probably, since 2008, between the scripts that were finalists and or won or runners up, we've probably seen maybe about 14 or 15 of them that actually got made and came full circle and were screened at the festival. So it's kind of cool to see that it actually got made.
It shows you how hard it is to make it from the concept process, doesn't it, all the way through to fruition, you know? Like,
yeah, sometimes you just don't get the funding, where you just can't get there. Yeah, but so it is. Yeah, it's a long process. That's, you know. The Wake, obviously, from the time it was written and sent to us and won at the 10th Waterford Film Festival, it took up to the 15th for it to be fully made and out on the market, you know. Long,
That's crazy.
long
Like,
time.
yeah,
That's dedication for you, you know. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and 5 years, like it's probably short in terms of how long it takes most movies to get from screenplay to screen. You know.
Yeah, but well, it's a whole different ballpark when you're an independent filmmaker, and Jonathan, he was mainly a writer at that stage as well. So only in recent years he started getting into the kind of directing sort of element. It was directed by somebody else, The Wake now, but he started to do other little kind of 3-4 minute comedy shorts, and we actually screened another one of his, The Room, as well. And
Oh,
this year, that was one of the films he wrote and directed. So yeah,
that's the
so
go.
that's kind of cool to see.
That's the woman about the actor at the audition, is it? In the
That's the
room.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that was really
So
good. Like he said he made that during the lockdown or something. I seen it on Facebook.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I believe anyway. Yeah, from what I've
Yeah,
seen.
it's like the corner of his apartment or something, which kind of shows
I
like
think
if you have
so.
it,
Yeah, but it was
like it
a
just
very
shows
amusing
nowadays.
little piece. Like, yeah, but I think it was only
Just
like
show
4 minutes.
Yeah, it just doesn't show like if you have like just the right idea, you don't really need like a big budget anymore. You can just like position your camera slightly to the right. You know what I mean?
If you have a strong enough writing, you know,
Yeah,
and it's good characters, you can make it work. Like, yeah. All down to
and
that comes to those
is
little nugget little comedies.
yeah, is he one of the filmmakers that kind of jumps out to you the most over the past few years because he went from screenwriting now you can kind of see he's kind of getting more established and he's not only getting established but he's trying different styles and stuff, you know, like almost monologue-ish, you know, in the room was, you know.
Definitely, yeah. I say he's one to look out for the future. He's a very talented yeah, young man, and I would expect we'll see a lot more of him in the coming years.
And is there any more movies do you think like internationally like you seen a larger interest internationally for your festival, and do you see like any movies that kind of didn't maybe make it this year or that you might consider for next year or kind of thing like that, or is that a thing that you do where maybe someone can go away, refine their film, maybe edit it and kind of sharpen it up in places that often happen, or
I won't name any names in that regard, but yeah,
yeah, of course.
there's definitely some films that if they were a little bit tighter and the running time and pace was a little bit stronger, that if they were submitted again in the future, they would probably stand a better chance of getting in. You know, sometimes it's there's loads of different reasons, but you got to keep an eye on your duration as well. And some films just needed a little bit more tighter edit in that regard. And there's films that we screened this year and on the international market. We seem to be breaking a lot more into Asia as well in recent years. We've gotten submissions from China, Korea, and Japan, and Vietnam. So we've broken into that market a little bit. So we're hoping that will continue and we'll develop more because there's a lot of great stories that we've gotten from that part of the world as well. And we're seeing increases in areas in Australia and New Zealand. And this year we saw a decent amount more from Central America and South America. That we had some screenplays that came in from Central America, and one of them was a finalist or semi-finalist this year. And we had several films from I think Brazil. So those are sort of areas that we're starting to see a bit more of every year. So for a long time, for many years, we mainly worked kind of Europe and the UK and the United States and Canada. That was kind of like our main market. But now we're
Yeah.
breaking into all these other places all across the world, which is really, really great to see.
And do you think because like something we kind of touched on earlier, with people being on YouTube more, and if you have something like a Netflix or these streaming services to kind of incorporate more foreign language shows into their kind of their slates, that people now are becoming more open-minded to looking at foreign language content in a way they weren't before, and maybe that's why you see these kind of foreign language movies coming more towards Western markets or English-speaking markets.
Yeah, I think so, because there's a lot of really good stories out there. That's the thing, like even if you look at more mainstream with Netflix, you have that, you have Squid Game, which is, international phenomenon, and it's, broken records with streaming and all the rest of it. So I think when you have something like that just taking off, you'll see more and more of that content as the years go on, and more people getting into that sort of those sort of stories. And there is a market for it already. It is kind of like a hard thriller sort of situation, and that sort of quality that keeps coming. More and more people are going to get into it, and will try and make those sort of films, TV shows.
And especially when you have like such a long-lasting lineage in like K horror and J horror, and both of them like with anime and manga in Japan and stuff, where the fan bases are there, they're huge and they're fervent.
They're huge, and they're just getting bigger and bigger, and more people seem to be getting into it, especially with the access with the the internet, and things getting better and better over the years. Like the sort of thing you wouldn't see 10 years ago. Since speeds of broadband and connections have gotten a lot better, this sort of entertainment can be provided on the internet. More and more people are watching online rather than their normal TVs, where they might project something off a website onto your TV. But you know what I mean? Like the internet and streaming services are just huge and getting bigger and bigger. So.
And you also have like people that grew up watching anime and manga as kids, and they're getting older now, so they're kind of their taste for content leans towards that kind of, in a sense. So you kind of have like stuff like Squid Game, as you mentioned, and Full Metal Alchemist and stuff like that, like where they're kind of hitting the more mainstream, because the people that are coming up are like, it's not even that they expect that, but they're more appreciative of that kind of style. So you kind of see more Westerners or more English-speaking people watching more Asian content and stuff like that, because like even Train to Busan, that was something recently, like from South Korea, and that was huge.
Yeah,
and
it's excellent. I love it.
Yeah, it's just all out action, isn't it? It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's just keeps your heart going. It's just non-stop.
Yeah.
I went into it not expecting much, at first. Then I just got hooked on it.
We always talk about the magic of lowered expectations. Like, because like sometimes like a movie could be amazing, but if it doesn't meet your expectations, you come out disappointed. But like if a movie like could be really good, but if you thought you had no expectations, you'll see, oh my god, like, you know what I mean? And that's what Train to Busan was with me. Even though like I heard good things about it, I had no idea what I was in for as soon as I started watching it. And it's like as soon as he gets on that train, it's just non-stop action.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
And you see, like with me, I find it hard to find a good. So many movies can be a hit and miss for me personally. So like so I went into it with a lower expectation, because I've seen some bad horror zombie movies over the years, and that was just threw me right off guard, and it's really impressive and very enjoyable.
It's like that's a sense of like kind of like when a subgenre or a genre becomes saturated in one specific style, that the ones that you really enjoy are the ones that try something new, and they're the only ones that really jump out to you.
Yeah. Like, it was a bit different than the usual that you see, especially from the Western ones. So they kind of did the whole. It was just it was different. You don't think that when the majority of one film is on one sort of area, like a train or a train station, and that it's going to keep you entertained, but they managed to put it off,
Yeah, no, it kind of harkens back to something like an Alien or a Space Odyssey. It's like you have that sense of claustrophobia or something, isn't it? Where you can kind of keep
that's true. Like you can almost imagine yourself just being there, like especially on an Irish train, like.
We'd all be doomed because that train wouldn't have arrived on time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Wouldn't meant out of the station at the start to be just a short movie where you run to the train station, everyone dies, the train shows up an hour late.
Done. Yeah. Game over.
Train to Dunleary. When I was saying to like the way people are becoming more appreciative of foreign language movies, so do you have one eye on those markets that maybe you'll expand, like where the submissions, the acceptance of those submissions, will you expand those, do you think, going in the future? Because like obviously the more and more they become interested, the more and more you have a market or a viewer base for those markets, that like do you think you'll see that expand over time, that maybe you'll accept more movies from those markets, or just more movies in general, so you can keep the kind of Irish quota up or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. We do plan to advertise and promote more in those markets because we were seeing that every year. Like the last 4 years in particular, we have been seeing more and more increases in Asia and the Middle East, and we get our steady flow of our Irish filmmakers every year. We get our steady flow of UK and a good few mainland kind of EU territories and stuff like that. So the Asian and Middle Eastern areas is something that we have seen increases in, and we will aim to try and promote in those areas a bit more to try and increase that as well, because we think there's a lot of excellent quality work in those regions, and we'll be more than happy to accept and consider their work and showcase them.
And do you think is because, like, especially somewhere like the Middle East, that where a film industry is probably quite like it has a long history there, but because of the troubles and tribulations in that area, particularly in the world over the past 20 or 30 years, and now that maybe things are starting to quieten down in certain areas, that you might see a resurgence or like a rebirth of the film industry over there, and you might see a lot more kind of like new filmmakers trying their hands, and maybe that's why you see like an increase of interest from there, because there's a rebirth or a kind of renaissance over there in terms of their film industry after the political unstableness or whatever that happened over the past 30 years or so.
Yeah, there has been a bit. Like we had films coming in from Iran and Iraq and Israel, so it was kind of an interesting mix, and as you know, interesting history from all three there. Off the top of my head, they're the ones that came in from the Middle East off the top of my head now, and yeah, like we see kind of primarily they're usually documentaries. Yeah. Focusing on the struggles and the different political climates and so forth. But some dramas are starting to creep a bit more in, and some of them are a bit quite inspirational in the sense of trying to show the more positivity side of these people in their lives and living in these regions. So it's very nice and nice to see that.
Yeah, because one thing you often see, like, where if there's political uprisings or whatever, that literally, like, sometimes the arts often suffer, and then usually when there's kind of like afterwards, when things kind of start to stabilize a bit more, that you often see an absolute flourishment of art, because they've all these stories to tell from all the, like, especially after something like World War II, or during World War II or something, there was like a Hollywood tends to, a lot of us kind of propaganda based. And
Yeah.
after that, we had like another golden age in movies, because everybody had all these stories to tell from the war and the struggles that happened, and maybe that's kind of, sometimes you have the kind of the trials and tribulations, and then art suffers for a while, but sometimes afterwards it often flourishes, and maybe that's what might happen in places like the Middle East after what they've gone through.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you can see some elements popping up here, there, and everywhere. And yeah, it's gradual, very gradual, but it's starting to pop back up. We were surprised to see the amount of submissions coming from that region in particular. So it's obviously on the up.
Yeah, that's cool. And like, is there often a lot of American content? Because if there's any like a country in the world that's goes hand in hand with the filmmaking business, is America, and like, and a lot of these kids over in America have gone to high level film schools and stuff, and you might get the better budgets or the better understanding of filmmaking. And do you see a lot of submissions coming from North America and that side of work? Because I know you said originally.
Big time. I don't have all the statistics in front of me right now, but I can tell you off the top of my head is outside, apart from Ireland, USA is number 2 or joint second with the UK when it comes to overall submissions, and then it's Canada, and then it's mainland Europe after that. So yeah, we get many from the United States, various different parts, east and west coast. So, we screened a good few of them this year, and primarily live action, but we've had a good chunk of excellent animations over the years from primarily a lot from graduates from big universities, in Los Angeles and Miami and New
Like
York.
that student you mentioned earlier on, the girl, she went to college in America. She was an Asian girl that did.
She was from Japan. I believe she's from Tokyo, and she was studying in America, and that was her final year thesis piece, final definition. And it looks like something of Pixar, it's excellent quality.
Do you think that's one of the benefits the American students have, that like you get that kind of level of filmmaking, or you get the opportunity to do that kind of level of filmmaking at such a young age? And that's why the reason where you have so many like top level filmmakers coming from America, because like over here, like a lot of the smaller stuff is independent, and like it'd be very hard to get the similar budget that like a college graduate got. Like, for, as you said, like Final Destination, it looked exactly like a Pixar short that would throw on before a Toy Story movie or something. It was that kind of high level of quality. Do you think they kind of have that little bit of an advantage over there ahead of other regions in the world?
I think a little bit. In some parts, like if you're in one of these universities, they obviously have a lot of money, and they pay a lot of high fees in America, as I'm sure you're aware, so. Yeah. And there are several colleges in our side of the pond that also have a lot of big money, like the National Film School in Dunleary, for example. Some great art colleges in London, and but obviously the bigger ones in general, and they would have more resources, more funding, and therefore you're going to see these bigger production value student films or debut films.
And do you think, like, as you something you touched on there, was that a lot of these Irish kind of colleges are starting to get bigger budgets, or to have more money to them now? Do you think we'll see an uptick in Irish filmmakers over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think so. Yeah, like there's like getting funding is very tough, but there has been some areas of improvement for filmmakers, and there has been an increase in some capacity to get funding. It still could do it more, and it always can. More encouragement and more programs to encourage emerging talent and inspiring talent. But
the grant system is
I tell you what, like I started in 2002, and it's a lot better, so
yeah,
there has been major increases, but there is definite room for improvement as well.
And probably being on the back of like as you touched on earlier, was the economic downturn in the past decade, and then you have the pandemic. So it's any kind of progress. Do you think there will be progress lost now going forward because of the global situation at the moment?
I think there has been a bit of a dip, but it will bounce back, either way. And we've already witnessed a bit of a bounce back. Like in 2020, for example, we still had a great amount of submissions, but we were down. And now this year, it bounced right back up, to pre-COVID levels, So there's just a lot of determination out there as well. And that's one of the keys. You have a lot of determined young filmmakers and artists that are just want to get out there again and start making stories and making movies.
And like people now, they're so used to making content in their own home for social media, for Instagram, for YouTube, whatever. More and more now, you'll see people you think are going to be more comfortable behind the camera as well as in front of the camera going forward.
There's definitely evidence of that with films that we've gone in, and it's made people think outside the box a bit,
Yeah.
So, and gave them a bit, if you're going to be in lockdown or in a situation that's out of your control, you might, and you're bored, you might start thinking, oh, maybe I can do this or that, and I'll try something out or try something new. As I mentioned earlier, some filmmakers decided to focus on animation that, for most of their career or up to now has been live action, but then they go, oh, okay, I'll give animation a go, and I'll focus on that for a while. And, because that's something you can do at home, technically, if you have the skills and the talent to do it. you can, research and you can use the programs and all the software and spend a lot of time, but it's something you can do with your computer system or whatever. And you don't have to go out and find actors, and you can get voice actors and do recording or whatever. So that's one area that seemed to be we saw an increase in.
Yeah, I noticed that too after when the pandemic and the lockdown started coming in last year, that most of the first shows that got renewed for new seasons were all animated shows. Because you see this straight away. It was like Bob's Burgers, American Dad, Family Guy, Simpsons. All these shows got renewed, and oftentimes for 2 or 3 seasons immediately right after that period of time. Because as you said, when you have an animated show, you can have your team of animators working from home. You can set up home recording studios for all your actors, and you can just knock it all out together, and you can kind of cobble it together afterwards. And that's one of the benefits of animation, because even like a big production studio like any of the Pixar movies, a lot of the actors record separately from each other anyway. They don't see each other during the process because of their scheduling or whatever. So animation does kind of give you that kind of freedom to operate within a very insular kind of environment,
Definitely, yeah. And it's something you can keep chipping away at and experiment with and get creative with. If you have the knowledge to do it, then, the last 2 years was one of the best times to really dig into it.
And do you think you'll see more and more animated kind of submissions going into the future?
I think so, and I hope so. It's always great to see that genre coming in, and then we know how difficult and how time consuming a project like that can be, and to see such great quality and excellent work coming in, we're more than welcome. And we love seeing it coming in. So, yeah, I think so. We're fairly confident that this trend will continue for another little while anyway. And more and more will hopefully eventually come through our doors.
And one thing I really enjoyed was the couple of movies we kind of talked a bit about earlier about the Irish folklore. It's something that's always fascinated me since I was a kid, and touched on Merrow and Mark of the Banshee. And do you often see, because it's an Irish-based film festival, do you often see more Irish folkloric kind of tales and things like that maybe don't kind of make the greater, and not actually to name any movies, but do you kind of often see that kind of bent or that kind of subgenre come up more in the kind of film submission process?
It seems to be sneaking in a little bit more in the past, I would say 4 to 5 years. During the early years, not so much. Yeah. But in the past 4 to 5 years, it seems to be an area that people have been looking into the folklore, the kind of horrors. We saw stories in the past of but this year, Banshee, but we saw several Banshees over the years, some based in Ireland, some based in some other part of the world or whatever, or something of that nature, And so it seems to be up that sort of genre a bit, and they can be very well done and fun and entertaining to see.
And do you think that might be because of the kind of slow kind of resurgence of the Irish horror scene? When you have a Hole in the Ground, Lee Cronin's going on to direct the new Evil Dead, and you see an Irish filmmaker that kind of makes, it shows you that you can make a movie at home, focus on your own lore, your own mythos, and you can look at a Banshee, or you can look at a Changeling, which was the focus in the Hole in the Ground, and you can really focus and make Irish stories in Ireland, and it can lead to these big opportunities in American places.
Possibly, I can't speak for other festivals and other outlets that do get films in, but in our experience, we feel that when it comes to Irish films, we primarily the genres would be kind of drama and comedy seem to be some of the more wholesome, the main favorites, so to speak. But in recent years, I think the filmmakers are starting to get a bit more looking into different stories, and the horror genre, the Irish horror genre, seems to be gradually picking up each year. Yeah. And with folklore stories, seems to be coming in more and more. Definitely, I see a bit of a trend at the moment, and I think it might continue.
Yeah, I think it's because one thing is like we spoke earlier on about was sometimes genre saturation can be a bad thing, and like one thing that's not really explored that much in comparison to other kind of folklores around the world is the Irish folklore scene, like because we do have a much richer history outside of even just the banshees or the changelings and stuff. And I think maybe you might see more and more people exploring the Irish mythologies, and you might actually see an increase probably coming up over the next few years, especially when you have mainstream success like what Lee Cronin had with Hole in the Ground.
Oh, hopefully so. Like, there are some great stories out there that haven't really been fully tapped into, or haven't been tapped into in a very long time. Yeah. So we would love to see more of that sort of storytelling.
And Stephen, before I let you out here, do you have any more festivals on the horizon, can you kind of give people a shout out for like what the windows are for submissions, and like when they can send their movies in or whatever, or what different categories that you're aiming to accept submissions in?
Yeah, well, I also do work for the Dublin Arabic Film Festival as well, so I'm kind of digging into getting that program together. It's not a competition this year or anything like that. It's more of a showcasing of Arabic movies on an online platform similar to the one that Waterford did this year. And we were planning on doing some live screenings, but we had to just, with the way things are going again, unfortunately, we decided to focus on an online thing. That will run between the 8th and the 12th of December. So it'll be a mix of feature films, feature documentaries, and a collection of short stories from the Arabic world. So we're kind of looking forward to putting that program out there. We're getting back to the Waterford Film Festival, and we will be opening up again for submissions roughly around April. We're a bit too early to give out too much details, but April is usually the time period for submissions. We're going ahead with all three competitions again, including our new photography one. So, we're looking forward to the next year and getting it up and running, and hopefully we will have some live screens. I won't say definitely, but that's the aim. Physical screens. And get the filmmakers back down to Waterford, you know.
And the landscape is always shifting. So, like, I'd say you're just like, before you're probably like, I can easily plan 12 months ahead. Now you're like, I'm going to plan it like 3 months in advance or something.
That's it. It's going to be advertised as an and/or situation from April onwards. So that's all we can do. That's all we can do.
Change the W and water for the fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Stephen. So hopefully we can come back and cover again next year. I'm trying to get you on record saying we can.
That'd be great. Yeah. No, love to be a part of it again, and thank you for having me. It's been a nice experience.
Awesome. It was fun having you here, and it was great to hear like what it's like, the ins and outs of the whole process, because like for anybody out there that'd love to get in on the festival scene, whether that be a filmmaker or even a festival host themselves or an organizer like yourself, that this kind of information is invaluable to them, like, you know. And it's great to see the Irish film scene really healthy again after such troubled times, you know. And it's like people like you and the festival that you put together is like, it's really, really important for the Irish film scene and the international film scene, because you give people a chance, especially first time filmmakers as well as award-winning filmmakers, a chance.
That's what we're about big time, is helping and encouraging new and emerging talent every time. So it's not just about the award-winning ones. We try and balance it out with debut filmmakers and student filmmakers as well, and hopefully encourage them to keep on trucking and making movies.
That's awesome. Thanks, Stephen. So I'm going to let you go, Stephen. And all right, folks, this was MDK Presents, the Waterford Film Festival with Stephen Byrne. I'm your host, Vincent Green. No John, nowhere to be seen because he's useless. He's an awful person. But Karen Mack's in the back, and we'll be back next time. Thanks so much, Stephen, for your time, and thanks for letting us cover your festival. It was an awesome experience, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks very much. See you again soon.